Hey everybody, this is Paul doing a quick impromptu video. So I wanted to do a video as I was actually featured in a piece for the New York Times. I'm going to link the article. If you don't click New York Times articles, I think you should have like a certain number that you can view for free. I think I've actually hit that limit because I've clicked this link, but there's me kinda. But I'll include the link. But also, Gina Smilek on December 2nd did like a little summary of everything that was in the article. Um, so I guess I wanted to go over a few questions that I've gotten. Um, about the article because the article was labeled "Why are middle-aged men missing from the labor market?" And a lot of millennials are like, "Oh my God, we're considered middle-aged or elder millennials." I like that term, but they were just trying to figure out like some things that weren't included in the article because it was already 8 pages, and I did send her an awful lot of information that wasn't included, but that would have put it up to like 20 pages, which would be kind of ridiculous and just go beyond what they were trying to figure out. So I guess one of the questions was, am I out of the article or am I out of the the corporate workforce, like that type of thing, because I do drugs? The answer is no. I only do what the VA gives me, which is pretty much like ibuprofen. I am a disabled veteran, that is mentioned in the article, which means I do have an income coming in from that. Not some dramatically high income, but it's enough. I'm rated at 40%. Uh, One of the questions was, why didn't I just go back to school? Um, Basically, in 2008, I was actually in school, going to school for biochemistry with a concentration in medicinal medicine. I had gotten out of the Navy in 2005. I went to the local college there, got my associates, and then I transferred halfway across the country to Phoenix, Arizona, because my job was there. They had an office there at the time, and then also they had a degree that I wanted. About I was about 100 out of 120 credits when the economy effectively in Arizona really went really bad, and I mean really, really bad. I think Walking Dead kind of bad. Um, so I did try to stay in Arizona to finish my degree, but I ended up having to leave Arizona and come back to Louisiana. So if you ever leave, they don't just cancel your student loans. They don't care. So that's how I ended up basically with only an associate's and probably $14,000 to $15,000 of debt at that time, I believe. And also, every single thing I owned had been effectively thrown in the trash because when I left Arizona, I left Arizona. I had to leave literally everything. I had to throw pretty much everything I owned in the trash at the time. So pretty much everything from about when I turned 24 up until maybe 26, 28, something like that, ended up in the garbage. Um, so that kind of changed my perspective. So I never paid attention to the market or anything like that. So when 2008 hit, I was completely blindsided. I showed up to work and they put five little pieces of paper on the desk, told me to sign all of them, and then told me I would get severance, which took 6 months to get, by the way. All at the same time that I couldn't get a job for going on 6, 7 months. So I took my tax return, took that severance, and left Arizona. Um, One person was asking, am I not working because I think I can live off the government or some other things like that, these weird things, trying to figure out how I live. Um, so I do run a, a YouTube channel. That's literally what this is. It's mostly about dividend investing. So I post this spreadsheet all the time. So these are my bills right here. Very transparent on what I post on YouTube. Very, very transparent. Um, so as you can see, total bills per month about 740.35. Each of it's labeled here, different loans that I may have out. These are like home improvement type loans that I took out. Um, the my house. Some people have been asking me, what about your mortgage, that type of thing. So what I did is I didn't like the prospect of possibly being homeless in Arizona. That didn't seem very fun to me. So I was a renter. I was kind of like your typical millennial up until 2008. I was like renting And then a lot of millennials after 2008 were very hit by it, because when I went to go buy my house, I got called an idiot by a lot of my friends. And the reason why I got called an idiot is because, well, what if the economy crashes again and you need to move across the country? And that was the experience for a lot of people that I knew that were my age range. They just had to pick up and go because the area that they were in just had no jobs. They just had to go. It's like, wasn't a Great Depression type move, from like Oklahoma to California, but it was. There's a lot of people that had to pick up and go. So it's definitely something that happened that affected my generation. So that changed my philosophy. So what I wanted to do is basically get a house. I didn't care what I got at the time. Really didn't care. I didn't care if I had a cardboard box on a piece of land. As long as it was paid off and I couldn't get kicked off it if the economy crashed, I was perfectly fine with that. So what I did is I got a house for a very, very cheap price in 2013. Very cheap price. 3 bedrooms, 1 bath. It was a fixer-upper. It had damage to it. That was one trick that I figured out, is that a lot of people were like, well, find this perfect house. What I did to get around that was I looked at houses that needed to be fixed. So I was looking at houses that needed big time plumbing work done on them because I was rebuilding my life. And it was only 2 years after I'd gotten back to Louisiana. And I'd been divorced in that period of time. Like, literally, I was pretty much almost penniless. So I was looking for a house where you didn't have to put anything really down, like the 20% type thing, because it just didn't have it. So what I learned is that fixer-upper houses were only worth 3% down. So that's why I looked at fixer-upper houses, just as something to get into, something that would maybe 10 grand worth of improvements or so that I can just tack onto the loan. And then what I did is I immediately started paying down the loan ridiculously fast. I put extra parts of my tax return towards it. I ended up getting back pay from the VA, and that's how I ended up paying off my house in 4 years after I got it. I put a very large amount of money. The VA actually gave me a very large amount of money, but you could tell who was touched by 2008 and who was not. When I got that money from the VA, I wanted to basically pay off my house, pay off my student loans, pay off my cars, pay off as much as possible that was remaining on everything. And a lot of the people at the time were like, well, no, just use it to go on a vacation. And I was like, no. I'm like, no, because having my house paid off is pretty much going to free up a very large amount of my income. It's also going to pay off in the long run, right? So, and then the house appreciated in value. Originally, my house was worth 63,000 when I bought it, because you could buy houses for stupid cheap in Louisiana. Right now, I think this is what it's kind of appraised at. Some houses in my area have sold for upwards of 200,000. So there's housing appreciation for you. And then all the people that told me that I should be renting versus owning right now are the ones complaining about inflation on rents. So there's you go on that. Who was right in the long run? Um, so I've had a bunch of people asking me, "Am I okay? Is everything okay?" So what I did is I worked at the same corporate job. I guess it would be considered corporate for Louisiana for 8 years as an analyst. I was hired on. This was the second job I had when I came back. I took whatever I could get when I first got back. But I ended up getting a pretty nice job, a very corporate structure, CEO, CFO. Um, Everything's very professional. Their handbook was very thick. Training courses, largest hospital in Louisiana, if that gives you a guess. Um, they were a very good employer. It's just the only problem was is that their analyst positions, particular, were kind of a symptom of what you're seeing right now. Is they viewed it as a way of, it's a position that's necessary, but it's also a position where if you got the right technology, you could pretty much automate it out of existence. Um, so what I learned very quickly at that job is that the automation, you were constantly in a race against automation at an analyst job. It's something you see in Wall Street all the time, but you don't think about it as like, at a hospital or some of these other jobs. But it's a job that's trying to get automated out of existence, from what I can tell, by pretty much every major employer, and Silicon Valley is happy to sell them the technology. I went through three different types of position in that place that ended up getting automated. It was constantly a race of developing my skills to stay ahead of the automation. until it got to the point where it was I wanted to move into a different role, and they said, do you have your bachelor's? And I was like, no. I was like, I don't have my bachelor's because of obviously 2008. And they basically told me, well, you can't get a 50-cent raise unless you go get your bachelor's. So if you do the math on that, they were going to move into the next position, which was only 50% or 50 cents higher. I had to go get pretty much start from fresh at 37 at that point to go put myself maybe in another 20 at this point 20 25 grand worth of debt getting a bachelor's. That's not going to happen. That shit wasn't going to happen. um, so I wanted to go in a different career direction. This is very specific to me. So my house is paid off, my bills are very low, plus I have income coming in from the VA, which you can see right there. VA. I was trying to figure out something to do. um, like I wanted to be more flexible. My wife wanted to get back into the workforce because she had been out because my kids are special needs, which was mentioned in the article. And that's just kind of what we ended up doing. It's just basically she went back to work. I found DoorDash, like gig work type thing, Uber Eats, Instacart, that type of stuff. And I figured out very quickly that I drive a Prius, which is already really nice on tax. Um, and then also how much I could bring in my area, which is just happens to be busy. One also thing I've learned is that, as you can see, the amounts vary by a lot. It looks pretty consistent, but it's really not. So what I tell people is if you have to pay your mortgage or like very serious bills off of DoorDash, unless you're in like this perfect area, or if you have like extreme experience in balancing all of the different apps, like DoorDash, Uber Eats, Instacart, ASAP, all these different apps, I would not try to pay very serious bills off of this. This is literally, as they describe it, gig work, extra money. I take a majority of the money, as you can see. So there's the percent that I actually invest, and that's how much I invest into the thing. So out of this, that's how much I've put in, and so that's why it works for my particular situation. So I'm doing perfectly fine. Some people have actually asked me, "Am I doing okay?" I'm doing perfectly fine. The article does kind of make it sound like I'm down and out, and I look. I don't think I look too rough in that picture. I didn't shave, but just showing my age there. But so I think I just wanted to kind of go over that, as to what I'm doing, why, just different things like that. Like different questions that I saw. Like I said, this is one story out of very many that affect my generation. I did let Gina know. This is hard to put into the article, and it's hard. It would have to be a whole other thing. My generation is the one that was affected by the Iraq and the Afghanistan war. When I graduated from high school and I had people stand who had already joined the military by that point, it was probably 25 people, 30 people at that point, right around 9/11, right after 9/11, that had stood up that were joining the military, just in my school alone. A lot of them got out disabled. A lot of them got out with PTSD. A lot of them got out. Some of them committed suicide, probably. It's hard to tell, So it's that generation that got out, and then it's also the generation that when we were technically what would be considered our prime years. So if I graduated in 2002, I was 18. By the time 2008 happened, we were pretty much in our 20s, early 20s, and we were building our careers. And if you know how 2008 worked, 2008 was basically last hired, first fired. That's, by the way, how 2022 or 23 is going to be. But so Gen Z, have fun with that. But that's that's kind of how that worked. So all that experience that you had, based probably maybe working at a company from 2000 or from your 20s to your mid 20s, was gone. Like you learned very quickly that corporate culture can be pretty cold when it comes to money, as the Twitter employees learned pretty hard the hard way. One manager change and all of a sudden most of them get laid off. One change and all of them get laid off. So all that stuff about whatever family and all that's gone. It comes down to money in the end. So that's definitely one thing that we got going on here. So I definitely wanted to just make a video real quick, just answer some questions that some people may have. Leave any questions in the comment section. If I haven't addressed them, I'll be happy to like comment back, answer any questions whatsoever. Like I said, I do have a dividend channel where I post literally everything that I do every 2 weeks. And I just happen to, New York Times reporter just happened to be interested in my story of like, like how did I go from like why am I not in that grind corporate world where you have to kind of like, pick your job over your kids kind of stuff. And that should be an obvious answer. So hopefully all this helps you. And let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.